Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of eDiscovery After Hours. My guest this week is Dave Lewis from Redgrave Data, a new venture out of Redgrave LLP. In this conversation, we talked about where his love of homebrewed chai tea began, the fact that he was the lead in his school's sixth grade play. We talked through his PhD in computer science at Michigan State and how his career path got him to this new venture with Redgrave today, including what was it like to work as an independent consultant for 16 years. And how do you build a book of business and develop new projects when that's never been a part of your career path to date? So it's a great conversation. I know you're going to love it. Our sponsor is Discovery Master. Discovery Master just released a new website that better explains who they are and what they do as the product has evolved over the last 2 years, and how specifically they are serving managed services providers, law firms, and corporations who are doing document review projects in Relativity and are looking for automated project metrics and QC stats. Check out www.discoverymaster.co. Thanks for tuning in.
Quick time!
You don't know how to drink, your whole generation.
Drinks on the house.
Yes, sir.
No, wait a second. Drinks are 50% off.
Right.
No, wait a second. Double the price of everything.
And I work only 16 hours a day.
A union man only works 8 hours a day.
I belong to 2 unions.
And now, eDiscovery After Hours with your host, Ryan Short.
All right, Dave, cheers. Welcome to eDiscovery After Hours.
Thank you, Ryan, for having me.
All right, now I'll ask my traditional question I always ask first, which is, what are we drinking?
I am drinking homebrewed chai.
Mine is not homebrewed. It is it's office microwaved, I guess.
Yeah, I was at a party that a Sri Lankan writer friend of mine had a number of years ago, and her uncle was brewing chai on the stove, like through the afternoon, through the party. And I kept coming over like a little kid. Is it done yet? Is it done yet? It was smelling, it smells so good and whatnot. And that kind of got me hooked on brewing my own at home.
So that is a very esoteric and artsy line. A Sri Lankan writer friend of mine.
Yes.
I feel like that's a whole other podcast episode in and of itself. So were you brewing tea on your own at home prior to this incident, or was this the catalyst?
I was not. I would occasionally have like chai in a restaurant.
Yeah.
Like, I love Indian food. But I didn't ever really think about like getting serious about making it home. And then actually later I was, when I was working on a patent case once, I was talking to an attorney who was of Indian descent. And she told me there's actually a big controversy, like in Indian families, about this. Like, some people think you should brew the chai for hours on the stove for milk, like my friend's uncle was doing. And others say, no, you just make tea, you let it brew 4 minutes, you pour some milk in. I mean, you're crazy or something, it'll get bitter, And so this is apparently a controversy that's out in the world. But I'm on the brew it on the stove for hours. And since I work at home, I can do that. Yeah,
that's absolutely correct. Now, did you ever get into like home brewing, like beer, or making your own wine, or doing anything like real adventurous? I
don't drink alcohol. So, I mean, this is chai is what you're going to get.
There you go. I dig it. I love it. Well, kudos. All right. So tell me now, I've got to pivot immediately, because when you cheers, there's a NASA logo and you're like phoning it in looks like from the International Space Station. So tell me what's going on here.
So my wife is a planetary geophysicist. She studies volcanoes on other planets. So we have dozens of NASA mugs in the house. And so she was at Goddard Space Center for 10 years, and she's at Space Science Institute now.
Oh my goodness. All right. So my favorite class, I had 2 favorite classes in undergrad. One was archery, because, you needed a random number of credits. So If you take a full credit load, in this fall and spring, and you did that for 4 years, you didn't have enough credits to graduate, because That's how public schools work now.
Right.
So you had to pick up little 1 or 2 credit hour classes here and there. So archery was one, and search for life in the universe was my other favorite.
Okay. All right. Good.
And I can see your eyes like, where's he going with this?
Find the life in the universe and then shoot it. Right?
Yeah. So the professor was a guy who had worked at NASA for like 20 years.
Mhm.
And so the first day of class, he's like, listen, if you think that this is all about searching for little green men on Mars, you should just drop now, find another elective. That's not what this is. And it was an absolutely just fascinating course. So, all right. So are you a double PhD household then? Because there's lots of big words in your job description and your wife's job description.
Right. We are.
All right. Very good. And you're a Spartan. Is that right? Do I remember that?
I am.
Are you a native Michigander?
Yes. In fact, I was born in Lansing, Michigan. My parents were grad students at Michigan State.
Oh, very nice. Multi-generational.
Double generational Spartan there.
Yeah. All right.
I should be wearing green, except I look terrible in green, so I'm not like doing it.
Well, you could get real Christmas sweet between your alma mater now and then, of course, Redgrave's.
The red. I don't think that would work.
Yeah, no, probably. Let's not mix and match.
Not the right shade of red and green.
Yeah, let's not mix and match. All right. So, and you have, you're a PhD. What's your PhD in?
In computer science.
So you're one of like the 4 people in the United States who probably sought out e-discovery instead of falling into it.
No, I like everyone. I fell into it. Right. No, I was involved with so there's a yearly evaluation the National Institute of Standards does of information retrieval technology. And I've been involved with that for many years. And through an intelligence agency project I was working on, I had put together this collection of scanned documents. And then Jason Barron, who gets everybody into this game, came along to NIST and said, hey, you should, run Trek on legal documents. And Ellen Verhees said, well, Lewis has got these legal documents. So I ended up getting together with Jason and Doug and running the first Trek legal track. And then it was all downhill from there.
There you go. I love it. All right. So you're born in East Lansing.
Lansing,
Lansing.
Sparrow Hospital in Lansing. Yep.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And we don't want to confuse. That's like in Indiana. There's Lafayette and West Lafayette, where Purdue is.
Yep.
And you ought not cross the two, or you'll get somebody on the wrong side of the river mad.
Yep.
And depending on which side of the river you're on, the other side is the wrong side.
Yep.
By the way, shout out to my buddy Ben, a Purdue grad, who evidently listens to all these based on the obnoxious texts that I get from him after the episodes air.
Hi, Ben.
All right. So, and you grew up where? You're born in Lansing.
Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Okay. Go Broncos. Western Michigan.
Yep. My parents are faculty at Western.
Okay. Very good. And so what's the game plan? Like when you're growing up, are you going in to computer science, or is this like a left turn from later? What was the original plan?
I always was interested in math and computing. I think it was always kind of a toss up between the two of those. I think probably I made the better choice. Kind of pure mathematics is a tough game. And computing obviously is exponentially growing during our lifetimes. And but I did do a math undergrad degree as well as a math computer science degree, as well as an undergrad computer science degree. And particularly my mom is a political scientist, and she would teach the statistics courses in her department. So I kind of picked up statistics from her initially, and had always been very interested in statistics. And as I got into information retrieval and machine learning, I was always very interested in statistical evaluation, sampling, things like that.
Yeah.
And that was sort of part of how I got, drawn into e-discovery, because I discovered those things are kind of mostly looked down upon within academic computer science, because, evaluation is kind of secondary to the writing the software and things like that.
Right.
Whereas evaluation is really part of the product in the law because of the adversarial system. There's a kind of much higher premium on that kind of work and a much higher level of interest in it. Yeah, so I think it worked out very well for me, sort of stumbling into the legal work.
Yeah, it's like, just stars aligned in the sense. See, there's a pun, an outer space pun. The stars aligning. So were you the guy growing up who was building, computers from scratch in your bedroom because you've had this deep interest in technology and mathematics? or are you going to tell me you were like played the lead in the musical theater, or were like the stud in the basketball team? I mean, what was like the random childhood passion or activity that you had that would surprise you?
Well, I mean, I was the geeky kid, though I actually was the lead in the 6th grade play.
You still know your lines, I bet, too, don't you?
Mostly just because they wanted somebody who could memorize all the lines, right? No particular star presence there.
Yeah.
But I spent a lot of time reading. I spent a lot of time, solving math puzzles, and I did a little bit of hardware building, but hardware was pretty clearly became clear that wasn't my forte. Personal computers, I think I had a VIC-20 was my first computer, and it had no memory, so you had to retype the program every time.
Yeah.
It
was like a precursor to Snapchat.
Yeah, right. Actually, right. Snapchat with writing basic programs. Yeah, and I was actually in the last introductory computing class at Michigan State that used punch cards. So
wow!
I actually have written 1,000-line programs on punch cards.
Oh my goodness, that is I hope you still have some of those around somewhere.
Yeah, there's probably 1 or 2 for bookmarks somewhere in the house. Yeah,
I love it. All right, so hardware guy, musical theater guy. You go in and you do not musical theater guy. You did the 6th grade. The lead in the 6th grade play, and then off to Michigan State for school. Did you meet your wife in East Lansing?
No. I met my first wife at University of Chicago and my second wife on OkCupid.
OkCupid. All right. See, so good. I met my wife online, but it was like still when you didn't say that, right? And people were like, "Where did you meet?" And you'd like make.
I don't know. Maybe you still don't say it. I don't know.
I know. I think you do now. It's like everywhere. Everybody we know. It's like it's just a thing. Okay, that's fantastic. And are you out west? Are you in Colorado?
I'm in Colorado. Yeah, we moved out here about a year and a half ago in the middle of the pandemic. My stepson finished his last year of high school remotely, and my wife had grown up in northern Idaho, and we knew we wanted to be back out west.
Have you been to Coeur d'Alene, I think is how you say it, in Idaho?
Actually, she grew up very, very near Coeur d'Alene. Sandpoint. Yeah.
Sandpoint. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I have not actually been up to see that yet, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm told it's incredibly beautiful up there.
Yeah, it's probably like most places. If you grow up there, you don't care for it and you want to get out. But it just feels like this like postage stamp piece of paradise, like way up by the border. Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. Great ski country too. Are you a skier now that you're out west? Are you about to be?
No. I do hiking. I do some road biking, but I'm a little risk averse. Actually, I was back right at the beginning of the pandemic. I was foolish enough to get talked into getting on to my stepson's skateboard and stayed up about 1/2 second, came down and broke my shoulder. And so I was in a sling for the first few months of the pandemic.
Oh, no.
So I am pretty risk averse these days on the physical stuff.
Oh, man. You ride a road bike. You said, what do you ride?
It's a Trek something or other. I don't remember the model name. My wife would know. She's got like 4 or 5 different bikes for different.
She gets into it.
Yeah, she's a serious road biker. Yeah, she
yeah.
was a star athlete in college, and she's a serious athlete. Yeah.
Oh, that's impressive. I considered myself a serious road biker until I had kids, and now it seriously collects dust in the garage.
Well, it's beautiful out here for biking and hiking and everything.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I have a tendency to drift into talking about how wonderful Colorado is, which really makes people annoyed. So we should get off that topic.
Well, let's be honest, though. I've never heard a human being say a bad word about Colorado. So you've landed in a good spot. No, that's excellent. All right, very good. So let's think. I had a list of things that I wanted to ask you about, and I lost the list in the midst of the daily chaos here.
Oh,
so right now, as I sit outside, it's begun dumping snow. We're recording this the day that the Midwest is being buried, so I'm going to wake up tomorrow to like 18 inches. So that'll be a good fun adventure.
Oh, we had 11 inches last night, so I was out shoveling this morning.
No snowblower? You're a manual guy?
I have not gone around. I mean, it doesn't snow that much here, and it's very light and fluffy.
Yeah.
I'm still, when I was out there this morning, I was thinking maybe we should get a snowblower. I'm still not there yet.
I love it. All right. So Dave, when I look back over your career path, you have worn a lot of different hats, had a lot of different roles. And one thing I think I saw, did I see the title CEO somewhere on there?
Yeah, which is pretty pretentious. That was like me and a professor friend of mine had a little analytics company for a couple of years.
Yeah.
It did not go much of anywhere. We our greatest achievement, which says a lot about where our skill set was we got a couple of SBIR grants, a sort of small business innovative research grant from the government, and hired a couple of developers and built some software, but neither of us really knew what we were doing.
But that's exactly where I wanted to direct it, right? Which is everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, lots of people come out of school and they get the org chart where they work and, they erase the CEO's name and they put their name in the box like, wow, that looks really good.
Is that a thing? I've never heard of anybody doing that.
Take me a few years to get there. No, you know what? That little soliloquy came from Myron Canning, my intro to business administration professor in my freshman year. But he talks about, hey, everybody wants to climb the ladder. It's lonely at the top. And he talks about, building your community and networking within organizations, et cetera, et cetera. So I would be really curious to hear your thoughts on, you've worked in collaboration with some very impressive teams. All anybody needs to do is look at your LinkedIn profile and to see, your track record. So can you kind of compare and contrast for me, working for yourself, so to speak, right? Sounds like you had a business partner there. Kind of compare, the good and the bad of working for yourself versus, working in conjunction with a group of peers as part of a larger organization, because there's pluses and minuses to both, but a lot of people haven't had the experience of working for themselves the way you have. So it'd be curious to hear your thoughts there.
Yeah, no, and I was just solo for 16 years, selling my hours. I did that after 8 years at AT&T, at 4 years at Bell Labs, 4 years at AT&T Labs after the Lucent spinoff. And I think, the advantage there was, these were incredible organizations. I was into what I was arguably the best machine learning group in the world at the time. And I just would learn a huge amount in that environment. But I also was always very interested in practical applications and was sort of frustrated by the difficulty of making things happen in a large organization. Actually, I mentioned the little startup I had was with a guy named David Madigan, and he had come in and he was at Bell Labs or AT&T Labs, I guess, at that time for a while also, but he lasted 7 months and said, this is crazy. I can't get anything done. He quit almost immediately and went and was with a startup for a while. And he was a professor. Now he's a provost at Northeastern. So he's been in and out of academia and business and whatnot. Super impressive guy. I think, the advantage of the organization you've got, if you're with good people, like I'm at my new company, you can multiply your efforts and you get amazing things done. The advantage of being solo is you've got incredible control. And of course, I've been working at home almost all of my career at this point. So I had a year and a half at University of Chicago, and then my first 6 years at AT&T, I was on site. But even then, my last 2 years at AT&T, I was actually in Chicago, where my first vice faculty position was. And then I was 16 years remote. And then with BrainSpace, I was remote because they were down in Dallas. So, the flexibility, the control over your hours, certainly for the consulting work, I did an amazing variety of things because I could, so it was just me. I could choose to work on anything I could get the business in. So, I did software design, algorithm design. I analyzed data sets. I, advised hedge funds and VCs, and a lot of the time I had grants from, where I was collaborating with university faculty and writing research papers. So, if you can get, the business, you can assemble the set of things you're doing any way you want.
Yeah.
And you're not, answering to anybody, and the overhead is whatever your overhead is for, your office and your house and whatnot. I think people who are, really successful and make a ton of money consulting, will build an organization, and they're managing junior consultants and they're hiring a lot. And I did, I hired, I had like a bookkeeper and a virtual assistant and whatnot, but I never hired any other subject matter experts because I didn't want to have to keep them fed. And, so there's incredible freedom in that. I think I've got the best of both worlds right now with the new enterprise Redgrave Data, because I've got, it's a small group of people. We've got, a bunch of people who are experts in things that I don't do. And so that's really nice. And we've got a great CEO, so I don't have to run the thing, and, which is another thing I never really wanted to do.
Yeah. I want to come back and talk about Redgrave Data in just a minute. But before, you hit on something where you talked about, being able to get the business, right? Mm-hmm. And you didn't want to have to feed junior consultants, but obviously you still got to, keep the wheels turning, right? And be constantly, finding where's the next project coming.
Yeah.
Had you had any experience in business development or marketing yourself for an organization prior to striking out on your own?
No, I was really pretty naive about it. I would get periodically asked when I would be at academic conferences, and I always enjoyed talking to industry people, and I would periodically get asked if I could do consulting for them. And, when I was at AT&T, the answer was no. So, I knew there was a little demand out there, but I had no sales training, business development. I didn't even know the phrase business development. I didn't even know that was a thing. So, I really kind of did it seat of my pants, and, I would give like tutorials at conferences and things, because those tended to have a lot of industry people, and and you'd chat with the industry people at conferences, and then later, as I got into discovery, you chat with the lawyers at conferences and whatnot. So I would always, go to meetings and network with people in my own kind of naive way, but I can't say that I ever did a particularly expert job of business development. I'm really glad, we have other people who are experts in that, at both when I was at BrainSpace and at Redgrave. I can sort of fake it a little, but, I'm a scientist, I'm an engineer. Everything else I'm an amateur at.
I think though that at least in professional services, it's not about who has this, the scientific process of business development down. It's about who do you trust, right? And outlets like those conferences, you're able to, okay, this guy clearly has a level of competence. Yeah. And now does he seem like he also has character, right? Yeah.
And I think that's really important. I as a consultant, I turn down lots of work. I'll tell you a story to those lines. So when I testified in clean products, we actually had several days of prep before that. And I'd never testified before, so they were a little nervous about me. And so they spent a huge amount of time, the attorneys working with me. I can say Dan Mogan was the lead attorney on that. And he spent a huge amount of time, throwing questions at me and whatnot. And I had actually, before I did that, because I knew it was coming up, I had hired a guy named Steve Babitsky, and I paid him like, $12,000, something like that. He's the top expert witness trainer in the United States. So I had him come out to Chicago and train me for a couple of days. And he was, very big on two things. One, integrity. He was big on a whole bunch of things, but one of the big ones was like, stay in your wheelhouse or stick to your knitting or whatever you want to call it, right? You're a scientist. You're not an attorney. You don't opine on the law, even if they try to tempt you into doing that. And you stick to your guns on your science, and the answers. And when I was working with Dan, he would be, he's obviously trying to get me to say the most favorable things. And I would say, well, I can say this, but I can't say that and whatnot. And so then I ended up testifying over 2 days in clean products. The testimony got split and against, some fairly tough questioning. And, Dan came up to me afterwards and said, you were a coach's nightmare, but you were like Iron Man on the stand. and
you should have put that at the top of your CV.
Yeah, probably. And and it was just because you had to stick. I mean, this was material I knew cold.
Yeah.
And I just had to stick to the, what did I knew was mathematically true or scientifically true, and then also, in information retrieval, text processing, there's things we know for sure. There's things we sort of know and believe, and most of the evidence is there. And you have to be clear on sort of like, what do you know for sure? What do we think is probably true? What is there kind of mixed evidence on?
Yeah.
And, you have to be really clear about that in your head. And, I think just personality wise, it suits me a lot. I mean, actually, I worry about repeating some of these stories from the previous podcast I did with EDRM. But, when I did a number of patents when I was at Bell Labs, and I worked very closely with Gene Nelson, who was a patent attorney there. And he was always saying, you should become a lawyer, right? You have a mindset to be a lawyer. And I think, there's a way in which I really do very much enjoy that system of rules. I was always the good kid at school, right? I mean, I like knowing what the rules are.
Yeah.
Right.
Syllabus day was always very exciting.
Yeah. And so, but I really enjoy, but the rules in the law are linguistic and, they're somewhat ambiguous sometimes, more ambiguous than science, or at least more ambiguous than the mathematical parts of science. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of very, it's an interesting reasoning problem, kind of what can you say here and what can't you say here? And what do you have to be nuanced about and things like that. And so I find that, I find working with attorneys fascinating. And I really have, I feel like I've landed, in a very good place. Like everybody, I stumbled into e-discovery, but I feel like I've landed in a very good place.
Yeah. Likewise. I think our conclusions are the same if our journeys have been different. So speaking of journeys, I want to pivot and be able to wrap things up by talking about this new venture that you're helping to spearhead that was just recently announced. So Redgrave LLP obviously has a fantastic reputation, have carved out a really great niche and built an impressive team. And you are a part of this new, I don't know if it's a consultancy. So what's the elevator pitch? What is, the name of the entity? What is it you guys are doing, and why should people be engaging with you? Okay.
Yeah. So it's Redgrave Data. We're a services firm. We do, consulting, analytics, both sort of hands-on with the data, transforming data, building custom code where we need it to, combine different data sources and things. But then also things like, sort of high level project management on e-discovery, TAR, using machine learning, all the way up to consulting. There's some, so Redgrave Data is majority owned by Redgrave LLP. Redgrave LLP has itself a set of non-attorney consultants, advisors who are very expert in these areas. So they do a lot of that. We would be doing a little of that. I think particularly am likely to, sort of be filling in, where there's like statistical expertise and expertise that gets more into the technology of AI and whatnot. So doing expert witness work again in that area, but also, working with the Redgrave LLP lawyers, the Redgrave LLP advisors. But I think our bread and butter is the sort of getting closer to the data side. And, there'd been a lot of pent up demand. Obviously, Redgrave LLP is not the first law firm to realize that you've got clients coming to you and say, well, hey, can you not only do the legal stuff, but we've got this, 3 messy data sets and we need to combine them and we need to do this kind of analysis on it. And I think, that sort of thing is, as well as sort of the design and management of TAR protocols, defending them and whatnot, are the kind of main areas of business. But with a young company, it kind of depends on what sort of big meteor of work comes at you, right? So we'll be seeing what those are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, best of luck. Thanks for coming on the show, Dave. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Oh,
and best of luck to you and Redgrave Data.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. Take care.
Right.